Welcome back to Conversations with Personal Finance Champions. We talk with leaders in the financial education space that are helping promote economic empowerment through financial literacy education. We have a great guest today, Bobby Kinzer. We've talked many times on the phone, and I can't tell you where this conversation's going, but I can tell you you're going to get a lot of value out of it. If you're looking to build a financial education program, help promote financial literacy in your community, or just be involved in some way, shape, or form, he is a wealth of information, and I'm looking forward to this conversation. I know I'll get a lot out of it. I'm sure you will as well. So without further ado, welcome, Bobby Kinzer.
Hey, Vince, how you doing? I've been pumped. I've been looking forward to this all week. I'm fired up. I'm like a man smoking a cigarette at a gas station. I'm about to blow up. I'm pumped, Vince. Let's get it started.
Let's do it. You're never short of energy, never short of excitement. And that really leads me into the first question. I mean, you did 31 years at the FDIC, involved in their financial education, many other things. Even during the SL crisis, you were doing some many active things. And you leave after 31 years. You could be on the beach, feet up, sipping Mai Tais, but instead you formed Life Literacy Institute for Financial Education, and you're busy as ever. What motivates you, and what's that fire behind you?
Well, because of my passion for raising all people's boats. And one of the things that has been so prevalent is people talking about social justice, but I always believed in social economic equity, which actually I believe helps social justice. So it just was a combination of trying to educate people, in general, about finance. And it seems to be one of the last things that people really tend to have just really know about, and I found out a lot of people don't know a lot of things. They only know what they know. And so many people fear it sometimes, financial education. They think it's going over their head, or some people think they're above it, and some people think they know it all. So one of my things that sparked me about it is just trying to help misconceptions about finances, lack of information, and also just realizing that people really don't plan.
Yeah, they don't. I mean, it's epidemic proportions here today. We see it with the struggles many people are going through. And I agree. A lot of people think they're either, they know more or they don't know anything at all. And they don't want to admit it, right? They don't want to know where to get that help. And I know you're very active with your organization. If you could tell us a little bit about Life and what you guys do in your mission there.
Well, the Literacy Institute for Financial Enrichment is, I'm the president, and actually the acronym is LIFE. So I love telling people I'm the president of LIFE. It sounds so cool, right? But we are a nonprofit organization. We've been around, this is our 20th year. We've been teaching and promoting financial literacy in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area and along the East Coast, but mainly in the District of Columbia, Maryland, in Virginia. And we go from every age group, from the youngest to elementary school, all the way to college, to young adults, to adults, and even senior citizens, because we believe that each one of those generations really need to understand about money. And it's just, so it's a lot of people say, well, what do you teach elementary kids? It's just basic things. It's just about coins and denominations, and just saving and how it's important that your parents budget, little things like that. It's not too early. We found out it's never too early to teach. So we take pride on my partners. We have 5 other partners that are range from certified financial advisors to mortgage servicers to project managers to directors of Small Business Development Center. We have all different expertise, and we all are volunteer. We all are volunteers, and it's been a great tool to use to help people, and serves my passion well.
That's great. It's nice to have an outlet for the passion. I think one thing unique about life and the challenge a lot of people come in, I talk to people that are new to the industry. They're saying, okay, they're trying to figure out what age group they want to serve. Do I serve kids, teens, adults, college students? And you guys serve them all. And I think this would help some people get clarity if you could share some of the challenges with these different age groups, and also some of the benefits and some of the things that you love about the variety of age groups you do serve.
Okay, well, let me start with the older age group. Let's talk about the adults first, because that's but we tend to focus more on young adults, 9 to college, right? But we also do, and I want to start with the adults. The issue with adults is a lot of times people don't want you to know their personal information. And how personal can you get to talking about their financial information? And then a lot of people don't want you to know about the situation at the end, because a lot of people are faking it to make it. So that's what happens when I'm dealing with the older people, adults, should I say, like 35 and up, 30 and up, to be honest. And with the younger people, I found that it's just nowadays there's so many good things to spend money on, way more than what we had, Vince. And I mean, I'm talking about some of the things. I love some of the things they have, and then the music that they can purchase, more available to purchase, and just things, and some of the Nikes, the shoes that they have, and the fashions. So my biggest thing with the younger people is really, and it actually involves all ages, but really with the younger people, it's mindset, because they see so many bad examples, so many things in the world that are just one of the biggest things with finance is people with lack of information, and then misinformation. And so many young people think that the internet, if they see it on the internet, that it is true. And there's so much misinformation, and that the younger people, I see that they are so misinformed. And so I really start, I don't start with numbers. Everybody think financial education is about math, budgeting, saving, credit, investing. But no, it's about mindset, especially with the younger people. I start with mindset. People say, well, what about mindset? I said, well, mindset involves your values, which also involves your financial goals. People usually make decisions on things that are important to them. So that's why it's important to start with the younger group about mindset and understanding to have values, how important your values lead to your goals. And then your goals and your mindset, your what you believe is important, what you believe actually which drives your thoughts. It's not your thoughts, and then you start believing. It's your mindset. So that's what I tackle with a lot of the different age group. And the college students, I find that they're yearning for information. That age group is, and especially being an older guy who was into basketball and played professional basketball. I see it a lot in the young guys that are in the college ages, that they, a lot of my older friends, they get a little bit discouraged with the younger group because they're afraid with all the gun violence and the smash and grab type stuff that's going on. So they're afraid to talk to that age group. And so with that age group, I try to really engage in conversation and not talk so much like us older guys want to dispense our wisdom. But when I start with them, I start listening. They just want us to listen. But the interesting thing, Vince, is they do want to hear from us about, our experience and our wisdom. But when you start with them talking about, man, I used to walk to school with no shoes, those old stories, they don't want to hear that old stuff, man. So I start with that age group. The challenge is communication, which all of them are communication. But with that group, is really communicating with where they are, because they have a lot to offer, and they really want to know. Even though they talk like they know already, actually they really are yearning, Vince, to hear from older people. And that's why I tell all my friends, all the older guys, and not just guys, women, engage in conversations with that group. We just don't engage enough and talk. All we talk about is their pants is hanging down and they listen to all that crazy music, can't understand. No, we know we had things like that when we came up that our parents talked to us about. We really need to reach out to that group. And I think that's the most important group right now, that eighth grade to high school, is when it comes to financial literacy.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah, no, so much to unpack there, so much wisdom there. And, when just sharing my experience coming into the industry from financial services, I was really focused on the numbers, the dollars, the budgeting, the tactical things they needed to do. And early on, I was missing that mindset piece that you highlighted so nicely there. And I think that's a critical piece a lot of people overlook. You have advertisers so influential, influencers so influential, their peers so influential. It's just generating a really consumerism amongst you. So I think starting from that behavior, those types of things, it's critical with you. So excellent point there. And the other thing, the big takeaway, I think, for people is to first seek to understand, right? And
Wow.
It seems like you're doing that with college students, seeking to understand where they're from, their perspective, what they're trying to do and accomplish. I think that is a big starting point. Building trust, building some camaraderie, and I'm guilty too. Like the guys at the gym, the guys where I hang out. I'm the older guy trying to dispense wisdom. I love doing it, but I have to take a step back sometimes. So I get you there, and that's a skill set. So I love those two. There's many points there, but I think for, some key takeaways there. Seek to understand your audience on a deep level. Take the time to have those conversations. All excellent points. And
Yes,
I know
that's one of my big ones. That's one of my big ones. I have a poster you said in my office. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. So you're hitting right where I am on that one. That's a sweet spot.
Yeah, I think that's a golden nugget for everybody here. You need to understand who you're serving and take the time. A lot of us will do surveys and pre-tests and so forth, but that one-on-one interaction, that conversation, that there's no beating that. And it sounds like that's your philosophy there.
Yes, no question.
And I know you do a lot also with Ted Daniels' group, Society for Financial Education Professional Development.
That was good. That's pretty good.
Right. So it's a long one, but people, National Financial Educators Council is a mouthful as well, so I get it. But so I know that you're doing some peer education and that type of work on campuses throughout the country. And what's your feeling on peer education and getting like-minded people at the same age level to participate in that training?
Well, at the Society for Financial Education Professional Development, we have a program called the Student Ambassador Program. And that is a peer-to-peer program where we train the trainer, because we realize we can't reach every student. And it's with HBCUs, historically Black colleges and universities. And what we do, we pay students, 5 students on average at each school each semester, $1,000. And we train them to train their peers, and it's working very much. We up to about 45 colleges and universities, and actually expanding even more. Now we've interfaced with over 70 over the years, but right now there's 45 that are in the student ambassador program. We also pay the oversight managers so that they're there on site and help and guide them, because we can't be everywhere. So that's one of the things I just feel so great in being a financial education instructor for them. I write a lot of their curriculum and their assessment tools, their pre and post assessment, and I score them for them, because it's such a great program, and it's reaching those young people. And peer to peer is very important, because, like I said, I'm 67 years old. I teach young people all the time, but coming from their own peers, we're finding it's a little bit more impactful, and they tend to reach them a little bit quicker and a little bit where they are better than us older folks. Not that we can, but that is the benefit from having that peer-to-peer program. And it's been, I think this is a third year, and like I said, more and more schools are getting on board with it because it's a chance for them not only to learn, but they get to make money. And we have like a financial literacy bowl at the end of each year. And I just did, the first time we did it was last year, and it was phenomenal, the participation and learning about the education that they have gained after, after the end of the year from going through the program.
I like that. I like there's some competition and something different way to get people involved. It's funny. We've had a lot of great success with seeing peer-to-peer training programs through. Going back about 15 years ago, there was a young lady that reached out. I think she was 15 or 16 years old, sophomore, junior in high school. And she said, I want to go through the CFEI training. And do you have an age limit? And we're like, well, I don't think so. And we all discussed, like, no, you can go through it. And she actually did a program for the youth of people where their parents were homeless. And she had such a great response. She came from a similar situation before, but the kids connected with her right away. There was less barriers to break. And I think that kind of builds upon your theory of breaking down and understanding first, because, where you and I may have to dig in a little bit to understand deeper, these kids are living it on a day-to-day basis. So I love what you're doing there with the peers education. And for those people looking to scale programs too, I think this is a wonderful opportunity to have some volunteers and people involved that are committed and already have an understanding of that audience. So I like what you're doing there. And let's circle back to the adults. I know we touched on it briefly earlier, but I think this is a big point. As you mentioned, hey, there's a lot of people are struggling financially. We're seeing, talking to people, Uber drivers, waiters, waitresses, the people I interact with on a daily basis, some friends as well, that are just struggling. They're going through challenges. And I know you've studied Jiu-jitsu for many years. And have earned a ranking there where, it's a very impressive ranking. For those that don't know Jiu-jitsu, it's a mixed martial art. I would call it the chess, the game of chess of martial arts.
That's
People
a good way to put it, Vince. That's a good way to put it, yeah.
There's so many moves ahead. And I think back to my time financially coming out, when I had some early success, made some mistakes and it got me into big problems. I'm stressed, worried, sleepless nights, all those things. And even though I had some information, I didn't practice enough. I didn't, have that experience. I didn't have all the knowledge I needed to navigate. That was my first time going through it. My second time going through financial challenges, I had a lot of experience. I've been through those challenging situations. I was comfortable with it. I assumed that risk, and I had perfectly peaceful nights. I was probably in a worse situation than the first time, but I knew risk I was taking. I slept sound. I was thoughtful in my decisions and so forth. And it made me think about jiu-jitsu. Everything in my life, I think about financial literacy. I integrate it, and I'm a very novice jiu-jitsu practitioner, and nothing nowhere near Bobby's level here. But still to this day, when I'm in a compromised position in when I'm rolling or sparring is another term. Rolling is what we call it, jiu-jitsu. I get in a compromised position where they impact my breathing, or I'm in a position where my mobility is limited. I'll make quick emotional reactions just to get out because I don't want it to experience that anymore. But somebody like Bobby would react differently. And maybe if you can share maybe some good lessons from jiu-jitsu that somebody in a tough financial position right now, that would help them more, I guess, make better and more qualified decisions when it comes to getting out of that situation.
That's an interesting setup there, Vince, because jiu-jitsu is, remember I started off talking about mindset, and jiu-jitsu, believe it or not, even though it's a physical, combative type of sport or art, it really begins with mindset, right? It's where your mindset, and one of the things that we start off with is preparation. Be prepared, and it's the same thing with your finances, right? Most people, they don't plan to fail; they fail to plan, and it's all about preparation. So that's definitely from the arts that learn to be prepared and learned about putting the effort in. Because what I find out about financial planning, financial management, most people do not put the time in. They don't put the effort in, because building wealth, let's be honest, it is hard. People try to make it say, oh, it's easy. No, it isn't. It takes work. It really is hard. People need to just accept that. But it doesn't mean, you back off of it. But the same thing with, in martial arts, man, there's so much resistance, against the forces, but we learn to be flexible. And that's why the correlation with martial arts and finances is so important. The other thing about martial arts is the correlation is awareness. We're taught to be aware. How can you be aware? You got to be aware by educating yourself. Understand your environment. Understand the environment, the things that are happening around you. A lot of people don't understand what's going on with the economy, what's going on with the stock market, how that you can make advantage of building your wealth and generational wealth just by understanding the environment of the stock market, which will then help you to enter into the financial mainstream of life. And then the other thing is, it's so important, discipline. And martial arts is totally about discipline. And preparing and managing your finances is about discipline. We find out that they did a major global survey about financial literacy. And one of the main points they say why people struggle with their finances is that they're not patient. And I thought that, especially when it comes to investing, I'm like, wait a minute, patient. I didn't figure that was going to be the thing that came out of it. And that's all that you learn in martial arts is discipline and patience. And that's the same. All those principles actually apply to, the financial strategies and methods that people should be involved in.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the patience, the time invested into learning about money, it's a never ending process. And, we can get the basics pretty quickly, but, that it takes continued effort. And just that experience, I think when you're in a tough position and you don't have that practice and time in, like you said, you're going to make some knee-jerk reaction moves like I did in the past, and like I still do in jiu-jitsu to this day. So it's problematic, and that really leads me into how we're preparing our youth. We see more and more states requiring financial literacy. Still, most kids will graduate with 0 hours. States that do mandate financial literacy, the average is less than 25 hours. Those that have the highest standards, it's 1 semester, which is about 50 teachable hours. 60 hours is a semester, but when you account for admin time, to roll call, all that fun stuff, kids goof around, it's about 50 teachable hours of financial literacy education. And your thoughts there, do you think 50 hours is going to prepare these youth for any of the financial realities of life, or what would you like to see happen within our school systems?
I like to start off answering that question first with, I live in Maryland. I live in Prince George's County, Maryland. And Prince George's County Public Schools had, in 2021, they passed a bill that for a student to graduate from a Prince George's County school, they had to have a personal money management course. And it just went, it's interesting, it just went into effect 2024. They put money aside for regular teachers that want to learn to teach, which is not totally different, but it's different than regular teaching finance education. And so I just want to say that. And I am actually the vice chairman on the Prince George's County Public School Systems advisory board for financial education, the programs that they're implementing. To answer your question, I don't think that's enough hours. I think more, and I think it's up to 25 states, Vince, that 25, 27 that actually mandate that you have to pass a personal money management course before you can graduate out of high school. And that's just not too much. And I'm living here in Maryland. Maryland is not one. Virginia is not one. And the District of Columbia. And I think that is sad. But it needs to, and the question should be why? Why are they not in more states? Because I was like, is this some kind of conspiracy theory? But when I talk to teachers and people in the business, one of the issues is competing with other courses that are no longer in the school anymore, like art. Some schools don't have phys ed none of the schools have civics anymore. So you have those enthusiasts who are trying to get back into schools. And I would think that financial education would trump those things. But actually, no, if you're in the arts, you want your arts to get back into the school. So you have those competing of curriculums too. But I still, for the life of me, don't understand why it's not more mandated other than do they want people to be illiterate? And I would hope not. But so that's the thing about the educational system in America. And I go down to the House, the Maryland State House, and constantly every year push for it to be mandated in the state of Maryland, and we will continually strive to try to get it in 50 states, man, because it's so important and it's so needed. And the battle to not do it is it's just unbecoming to me. I can't understand it.
Yeah, I'm the same. I got my tinfoil hat right here as well. I don't necessarily understand why, but I love what you're doing with your county. I think you said a few great things there. It sounds like it's funded. Most of the states that even have mandates are unfunded mandates.
Correct.
Politicians say, hey, go teach it. The school says, okay, where's the money? That's you got to go fight other departments for that, right? And nobody wants to give up their cash, especially their ingrained departments that have a lot of connections, economics, social studies, and math. Oftentimes they're trying to claw money from them. The other thing I like that they're doing is training teachers in your county. Most states don't require that. And I always say, well, all evidence points to having a trained, competent educator is the most critical thing that will impact student outcomes compared to anything else. I can give a great educator, I can give Bobby here the worst curriculum in the world, and he's going to make the class great. The same wouldn't work in reverse. So if I give a underqualified educator the best curriculum, the kids probably wouldn't have those outcomes. So I love what you're doing there in your county. And yeah, I agree.
And the other thing that I found that's an inhibitor for teachers to teach financial education in the public schools is teachers are bombarded with the curriculum. For one, they got so much already that they have to teach. So that becomes even, if you're bringing in phys ed or you're bringing in, civics, but they just have so much on their plate. And this is the other little secret, Vince. Most teachers are comfortable teaching savings and budgeting, but they found out they're uncomfortable teaching those areas of risk like credit and investment because they don't know. So part of that is some of the teachers, they're not gravitating toward teaching because, like I said, some people think it's, over their head. Some people think it's too complicated, and that includes some teachers. So that's my goal, to try to help them, give them the tools, give them the knowledge so that they can feel comfortable with it. And, whenever you start, like you're saying, if it's funded and you start paying them, that's usually, and I'm sorry, my teachers out there, motivates a lot of teachers getting paid.
True. And yeah, that level of confidence, when we look at a math teacher or a economics teacher, they went through, let's take a math teacher. They went through elementary school study math, high school study math, college study math. They've been teaching math for 15 years. They have all the curriculum lesson plans. Now it's like, hey, Joe, come teach financial education. They may have their, niche areas where they're good, and, math teachers are very analytical. But as you point out, it's, money isn't 1 + 1 = 2. Money is, every kid in there has a different financial situation at home. Every kid has different habits, behaviors, different goals in life, different paths they want to go. And understanding that, I think, is really key. It's different than some of these other topics where it's not just a post-test to determine their knowledge gain. So that is interesting. And yeah, hopefully we can advance some standards. I see two other issues that are holding it back, college admission standards, so teachers, so the classes in high schools, we've been teaching for over a century, the same ones: English, math, science, social studies, foreign language. Back 100 years ago was Latin. Nowadays it's whatever, but the same, core subjects. And we have computers, we have AI, we're able to talk, from across the country here. So hopefully we can, I know you're a passionate advocate, myself included, and hopefully we can get more people involved in that advocacy. I think it is needed to really protect these youth, but definitely appreciate your efforts in there. I want to transition just a little bit. I know, when you're working with kids and so forth, and because schools aren't teaching, their parents are an important part of, helping to teach kids about money and delivering that. Really, when we look at it, they're the only line of defense in many cases against, financial issues that can arise later. Not every community has a Bobby. Not every community has a financial education program. More and more are growing, but it's really needed. So, the parent role is really critical. Do you want to speak a little bit about the parent role and how you think they should be engaging with their children?
Yeah, things have been changing too, Vince, because when I grew up, my mother didn't share anything about how she paid her bills, how she created a budget. It was taboo to talk to your kids about finance because they figured that wasn't for kids. That's adult thing. So that's changing. Actually, a lot of advice now from financial education is share that with your kids. Share how you pay your bills. Share some of the issues that you have with finances. And another thing that's changed dramatically with families and especially parents and kids, Vince, is people used to, meet the same time for breakfast, meet the same time for dinner, and everybody had a chance to sit at the table and you could talk to your kids. But now, everybody's eating at different times. Everybody's running. Everybody's schedule is different. You got soccer moms. You got
looking at their phones when they're talking.
You know what I'm saying? You got AAU basketball. You got volleyball. You got baseball. So now the new thing is, and I was talking to somebody about this, and they're like, "I don't agree with that, Bob. We need to go back, to sitting around the table." I said, we can talk all about going back, but if people are not doing it, that's not the culture. What are you going to do? And so with the one of the solutions to that, they're saying, now talk to your kids about those things when you in the van taking them to the soccer game, when you taking your kid to the basketball game, when you are taking a trip, vacation, talk to them at those times, and somebody, those are, small moments, but those are important moments, and you'd be surprised how much that you can convey just in those little time. But and depending on which city you in, you might be driving 45 minutes to an hour to get the kid to whatever activity they're having anyway. And that's a good part of time to be able to talk to your kids. So use those moments, I wish we would traditionally could go back to the ways, but we got to think of solutions, man. And another thing is, I find it different now at least with my kids and some of my friends' kids. We're teaching them to use critical thinking. Back in the day, it was shut up and do as I say. Don't do as I do as I say. Shut up, sit down, be quiet. And what's so interesting, Vince? You spend the first 2 years teaching your kid how to walk and talk. And then the next 16 years, you tell them to shut up and sit down. It's so interesting. So now, like with my kids, I tell them, hey, it's not about what happens. It's about how you react to what happens. I teach them, hey, as long as you do the right thing, you will never have to worry about being wrong. And this is just about, and I tell them when somebody tell you something, no, just don't take that answer. Because back in the day, if you question an adult, they smack you in the mouth. But no, it's just not disrespectful to say, well, where did you get that from? Or what do you mean? And that's where critical thinking, and we need to get our kids to, really, really using critical thinking. And I believe a lot of parents are doing that these days.
Yeah, no, that's a great insight. And yeah, the kitchen tables move from that kitchen table to where you make it. And I love that tip. A great strategy for your parents and those teaching kids too. It's getting parents involved. And a lot of times parents say, I don't have time. I don't know what to do. Well, hey, listen to Bobby's advice here. Utilize the time you have. Hey, when we're driving, put down the phones. Let's talk, right? And,
Put down
values.
the phones.
And so that's great advice. The kitchen table has moved, and take that. And just transitioning to really your community involvement. I know you have a very unique perspective. You worked with FDIC, building relationships in communities, driving financial education forward. And a lot of people listening may be wanting to partner with those types of agencies and organizations, whether it be a governmental organization or maybe a larger partner that they're trying to reach out to. What advice would you give to them? What would you look for? Maybe people you want to work with, and maybe how would you work with individuals? Maybe just starting out. Maybe they're starting a podcast or an author, or maybe they're just doing local financial education programming. They want to work with these other organizations. What insight could give them from your work on the government side of things? What would you look for in people you collaborated with?
Well, it's all about relationships, Vince. And the young guy in the class, when I said that, he said, "But in business, Mr. Big Bob?" I'm like, even more so in business. It's all about relationships. When I hear people saying, "Okay, nothing personal," it's all personal. It's all about relationships. Relations, how you communicate people, reach them where they are. And the interesting thing, Vince, being on the government side and now being on the private side is almost totally different, because being on the government side, having those initials FDIC is pretty major impact. We're in every major city and in more and thereabout and more, right? So when I was on the government side, I had the audience. I went to play. The audience was already there. I didn't have to go and find the audience, because the audience was there for me, because they want to connect with the FDIC. Being in the private world, I have to go to those places and I have to prove myself. And believe it or not, by having the credentials of a Certified Financial Education Instructor, even though I have these 30 years, I was a stockbroker, investment advisor, but having that certification when you're in the private, which helped me so much, Vince. Thank you for that, by the way. It legitimizes me, because there's so many people out there saying they teach in finances information, but really a lot of them are selling products, or they profess to be teaching financial education. All they give you is a glossary of terms, So coming from the private side, you gotta, one, make the connection, but two, legitimize yourself and prove that you know what you're talking about. But on the government side, but now private trying to get into the government side, right? How do you make that connection? There's just so many places out there. And what I found, like I said, it was easy on the government side because it's all set up for you. We had the credibility of the FDIC. So that was a no-brainer. I go around the country and people waiting for me to come in and speak. Now that I'm private, right, I got to find the people. And it's so many people, especially, and this, Vince, that it's like a trend now that a lot of people are getting into financial literacy and financial education. I mean, everybody's starting to clog up and everybody, and I think it's a great thing, but all financial educators are not created equal, But so the one thing that I'm finding out from the private side, back to the martial arts, back to, you must make sure that you prepare yourself, that you are legitimate, that you have a program, you have the tools, like from the National Financial Education Council, it's that you have, and that's what people gravitate, because people can tell if you know what you're talking about or not in finance. And that's the thing that I would tell people from the private. First of all, make sure, if you have an organization, make sure you have trained people, make sure you have people that know what they're talking about, and you know what you're talking about, because that's how people engage. Now, one of the things that I found out, techniques I used to, as our nonprofit, we'd do a fundraiser, right, to try to get, because it's all about funding. That's what kills me. We talk about financial education, and people always, I don't have no money, Bob. I'm like, good grace, I'm up here teaching you about finance, but I get it. But funding is a major thing for financial educators. People don't understand that. So one of the things to get financing, I used to do fundraisers, night bowling, midnight bowling, cookout, all these things. When I found out the next year, I'll be out there again with my hand out asking for help to fund what we're doing. So what we found out, we try to go to organizations, corporations, government entities, private entities, community, and try to get grants that are like 2-3 years. So we're not out there the next year running around, like Oliver Twist, more please, and try to get a commitment. But this is the key though, Vince, not just going there for funding. That's good. But the real nugget is going to these organizations that have access, that will allow you to be able to have access to those other people, to those other corporations, to those other people to be able to achieve, because they have access, especially if they're big organizations. And that's what, kind of the strategy, what I've learned, government versus private. And it is a struggle sometimes coming from the private side because, so many people are, so many salesmen are after people. So that's what I would like to say about those issues.
That's a great tip and great strategy, and there's a lot of people. It's always interesting. People call and it's a passion project for them, right? But I can tell they feel a little nervous or uncomfortable asking about funding because they're doing it from their heart, but they need to make some money too. It's like, I always say, hey, you need to think of funding as one of the early things in what you're doing. Yeah, get the repetition, get the experience, get the plan, get the practice down. But you should be thinking about the funding strategy, because if you're funded, you can, instead of doing one event, you can do 10, right? Instead of doing 10 events, you can do 100. So it helps more people. So I always try to break down that wall. It's even people that want to be educators feeling comfortable talking about that aspect. But you bring up some great points.
And so before you move on, though, I want to make this point about the funding. So some people come to me with, Bob, why do you need funding? You just talking, you just providing information. I'm like, because we want people to leave with materials. We have PowerPoint presentations that we have to put together. We hire other specialists and experts in the field other than on my board to give people a variety and give people exposure to the other experience out there. And like I said, and we want people to walk away with something in their hand because they can't remember, or they don't mean take notes. So those things take finances. And then one of the things we learned, to get people to the workshops and sessions, people want to eat. That's one of the biggest things, to get people to come to and then give out prizes and gift cards and stuff to help them. So that's why we need funding. We're all volunteers on my board for life. We're not taking this, no salary involved, nothing like that. We're volunteers, and we need the funding to be able to do those things.
And I always tell people it's like an iceberg. They're like, okay, why is it so much for a speaker for an hour? Right? It's like an iceberg. You only see the tip of the iceberg, but under the water, it's like the 90% of work that needs. Yeah, exactly. That work that needs to be put in, and just organizing the registration process and doing the marketing. Gathering the data from surveys and post testing and reporting on that, communicating with people, handouts, signage, all that stuff. Copying, yes, it's a big expense. And so I like your model of, hey, finding those corporate sponsors and foundations it sounds like you may work with to achieve that funding. And for those that aren't a nonprofit, I know, and we'll talk about this in a second, that you can always partner with nonprofit organizations. That's how we started early. We would just partner with nonprofits that had name and reputation we didn't have at that time. We were brand new. We partnered with nonprofits, did programs for them, gave them the data, then they would get the funding and hire us. So there's a few models you can go with there as well. And with that, I know, on the funding aspect, I think, again, it's critical to consider, all the different components that's going on, to put on it, when people hire you for speakers, it's like, oh, just come out for this little bit. No, it's program design, curating the lessons based on student needs, all that thought and time that goes into it. So don't undercut yourself when you are pricing yourself out there. That's very important. And like Bobby said, finding those sponsors and building relationships. I know Bobby's big thing is relationships, and just a theme of what I've known him for over the years is relationships. And that leads me into a question where, I see you're involved in a variety of different groups in your community. You're on our advisory board. You work a lot with Ted Daniels and his group. You work with the county public schools. I think it was you're on the board of the
Prince
library
George's.
as well.
Oh,
Prince
yeah.
Williams, thank you.
Yeah.
And you're actively involved in that community. How do you think that's helped in what you're doing to build and develop those relationships? And what suggestions would you have for others that are maybe starting out that are looking to build and develop relationships?
Well, that's it, Vince. I'm glad you pointed it out. I forgot about that. I'm on all of these different boards and committees, and that's how I build relationships. Getting into these clubs and memberships, and going where the people are, and that's where you got to go if you want to teach. You got to go where the people are, and that's what I tend to do. And I gotta be honest. Now, I didn't just totally. A lot of them came to me. It wasn't like I went out and I targeted this group and that group. Some of them I did, but most of them found out what I was doing. And to be honest, I was open. I had to be open to be able to do those things because it's just not a given. And then your space, for time gets very thin, and you just can't do everybody. But it's so important to get involved in the civic organizations, and like I say, go to where the people are. Even like the recreation centers. Man, a lot of people miss out on the national recreation centers across America. There's association recreation centers in and they're just looking for people to come in and do programs. But a lot of time people, want to go to the big corporations, big institutions. But there's so many places that like I've done the Girl Scouts for years in the metropolitan area. I've done the Lynx Club in Montgomery County for years. I do all the fraternities and sororities, alumni associations. These are, after they're out of college, we have like about 3 within one sorority in Washington, D.C. Then you got 3 or 4 in Maryland, Prince George's County Delta Sigma Thetas. You have the Montgomery County Delta Sigma Thetas. You have Alpha Phi Alpha in Prince George's County. You have the Alpha Phi Alpha in Silver Spring, Maryland. And so I connect with all of those kind of organizations to be able to, so we can get out there. And like I said, what we do, we want to spread the news, the information about financial education and building wealth, and especially generational wealth. And that's how we do it.
That's awesome. And correct me if I'm wrong. I think we reached out to you to be on our board here. Was that correct?
That is 100% correct. Yes, you did.
Let me explain why. I think this will be a nice kind of tie up here because, every graduate gets a speakers page. I review all of them, and the ones that have excellent, that are standouts. And what I look for in standouts is passion and experience, and we look at online presence, and we look at what they're doing now, their website. And when I looked at Bobby's, all across the board, it was highly professional. And really, online is a way to get out there as well. So I always tell people, make sure your online presence is good. But then, so that was like factor one. You get on the phone with Bobby for the first 5 minutes, this guy's just fired up about this, passionate about it. And so I think even if you lack the credentials, so if you don't have 31 years FDIC, if you don't have, 15 years in financial services, whatever the case may be, but you have a passion. You want to make a difference. You want to contribute. Yeah, you have a reason to be there. I always like to hear about people's reasons. Why? What is it about you that, why this? A lot of people say, I wish I was taught about money, or, hey, I've made some mistakes. I want to help others. So really, when you're thinking, you don't have to have the 31 years experience. You have to have passion. a desire to serve, a desire to contribute to your community, willingness to form relationships, get out there and network and build relationships, think through different funding options, try, it's not the end of the road. Hey, Bobby's tired of doing midnight bowling. Well, hey, he found another path. A lot of it's about trial and error. And some great words of wisdom here today. And I just want to give you the opportunity, any fun. So for a budding financial educator, somebody who wants to either lead or advocate or be involved in financial education in any way, what final words would you share with them?
I would say it's along the line what you said, man. I hope you if you have the desire and you have the passion, and this is what happened with me. It just seemed like the more I got to learn about it, the more I learned that I didn't know. But the more I learned, and I don't know why with me, Vince, it made me want to know more. And so once you get involved, I think it's going to take over. The more you do it, don't give up. It's so important. And just have a goal, just like what we talk about, in financial planning and all. You should actually have an goal. Set it up for yourself that, what group that you want to target. Because remember, we talked about this, all different age levels in this. And I mean, no one can be expert at all levels at the same time. So there's a space. So I would say to you, if you have the passion, look into it, think of a plan, target who you want to start with. You don't have to stop there, but you have to start somewhere. And I would say keep the passion, keep the drive, and keep putting the effort, because you need to understand it is a need out there and you can feel it. You just need to find out what is your niche in that market of personal money management and go for it.
Yeah, there's a need out there. Find it and go for it. Well said. People are going to want to connect with you. How can they do so?
Hey, Vince, they can connect with me. We have a website, financialenrichment.org. But I also have a website called bobbykinzer.com. And I got to be honest, Vince, this is a shameless plug. I have a book out now called The Other Side of the Hoop, the European Professional Basketball Experience. I played 5 years in Europe, in London and in Scotland, and upon Europe. And I have a book out on Amazon and Barnes and Nobles and Durant's Publishing. That's my publishing company. But so for financial literacy, you can go out on financialenrichment.org. And if you want to know more about my book, you can go to bobbykinzer.com and I can be reached. My email address is bobbykinzer, Kinzer, 512 at gmail.com.
We'll put links to all that in the show notes here. It's an honor to talk with you. Again, from day one, this went way off the script that I had. I figured that would. But again, you're just.
That's how we do, Vince.
Exactly.
It's all about information, though, right?
Yeah. And I just want to say, you're a true asset to this community. You're a true asset to the financial education movement. What you're doing is really helping elevate people's lives. So I'm very appreciative of what you do. And I wish you many continued years. I know you're going to get busier and busier and make more of an impact and change as time goes on. But I really appreciate you being here with me.
And guess what? My next book I'm writing, Vince, is called How to Keep from Getting Got. The consumer guide to overcoming salesmen, marketeers, and scammers.
That's you. I mean, most people, and we'll circle back to my ending here, but I think this is an important point because most people get their financial education when we look at it from salespeople, right? And most salespeople are good, and have a good heart, good intentions, but some aren't. And just going back to my mortgage industry, I remember people would call up and say, hey, I want to get, refinance, but the last person said, don't run my credit because I'm almost, I'm marginal. Right. And I'd say, hey, this is how it works. They'd had an 800 credit score. They're quoting them a half point higher. Right. So there are people like that. And I think, if we get financial education from unbiased individuals like Robert, Bobby and many others out there doing some good things. True educators that have the heart of service and a fiduciary responsibility to act in the best interest of that individual. The world will be much better. So I'm looking forward to that book. And again, thank you so much for joining here today.
Thank you so much, Vince, for having me.